Is this on? Yes, okay. So in my world, covering AI as a journalist, I find myself having to wade through a ton of hype. Richard called it marketing blah blah. And it's hard. It's really hard for me to tell what is hype, what is real. So maybe we could just start by each of you giving us a sense of where we really are as far as that balancing act between both the capabilities of agentic AI and also the organization, a Fortune 500 company, Fortune 1000, Fortune 5000. Where are they at in being able to implement that? Maybe we'll just start with May.
Yeah, happy to start. It is incredible. You can go from an idea to a working prototype in 90 seconds now. No Figma, no PMs, no engineers, no designers, and a lot of people are very excited about that capability. But the reality of what is actually scaled and in production beyond generic chatbots in the enterprise is very, very different. Maybe we do this as a lightning one, but that's my take.
Yeah, I think it is incredibly hard to navigate AI right now because there is actually a lot of unfounded hype, but there's also a concrete reality. These models are getting incredibly smart. There will never be an AI winter again, and if there is, it'll be like a California type winter, you know? And so I think we are seeing similar things where a lot of folks want to do the latest and greatest vibe coding. You can get a prototype really quickly, but that doesn't mean a company can really rely on that. And then you go into like, okay, how do we make this real? And then you realize there are a lot of just data problems, permission problems, and so on that companies have to get access to all the different data sets, and then maybe get to knowledge agents being there and actually working. I think the action agents for larger enterprises will probably take another few years to really get major adoption.
Similar takes. But I think I would say that it varies from enterprise to enterprise. Some of them are more eager than others. Some of them are willing to forego governance and oversight more than others. And that's sort of, I think, what makes the difference. Like the more you're ready to experiment, the more you sort of see progress with agents. Agents are there. Like, I would say that at most of the large, like if you take the Global 2000 or Fortune 500, I would say that every one of them have at least built a few that are actually adding some business value to them. But there's nowhere close to like thinking about like, well, 50% of my enterprise work is now happening with AI. That's like very far from that.
Yeah, I think very similar to us, especially with agents and multi-agentic systems, we are seeing things that's almost unimaginable. And we've seen some of it with co-scientists. And when I say unimaginable, actually, it's not about just super intelligence. It's being able to do things that a human would take maybe 100 years and do it in one day or less. So this really brings lots of new opportunities, especially in the researching areas, and all enterprises have many research areas in their tasks. So we will see lots of progress there.
So what are the biggest technical bottlenecks? We've brought them up, a lot of folks have brought them up here, everything from hallucinations to issues with reasoning. What are you hearing from your clients and potential clients that they're just still not trusting the systems? Arvind, maybe start?
Yeah. So I think there are the problems of AI, and then there are the problems of the enterprise. So there's a lot of challenge just in terms of, well, as a company, do I even have the right data? Have I actually curated it? Do I have a lot of stale information sitting out there which is no longer correct? So I think companies are also actually struggling with just that part of it. Like, do I have the right information? Is it actually just in people's mind? Is it documented so that I can actually present it to AI? So that's one challenge. Second is, again, like outside of AI models, is this issue of, well, I mean, there's a lot of information inside the business, and a given agent, it needs to have some information like to perform a given task that it has at hand. And how do you actually bring precisely that information to it? And this is where Richard was talking about, like, search plays a key role in bringing the right information to the agent so they can do their work. And there's a lot of loss, at that step also. So I'll just focus on those. Like, since, oftentimes AI gets the blame. I may not use this one. Oftentimes, AI gets the blame, but there's a lot of like stuff outside of AI which is also coming in the way of, agents becoming successful.
Yeah, I can add some as well. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. I mentioned function calling in my talk as well. Currently, many of the large language, actually all of the large language models are not super great, especially if you provide lots of functions to call as an option when choosing the right function for their task. So this is something definitely to watch. Another thing that I would mention is personalization, or really retrieving the right information from memory or memory banks. And I think this is where, again, combining search and retrieval engines with large language models becomes important. And there's lots of context in the past. How do you retrieve and use the most relevant information and be able to provide personalization? I think those are some of the. There are many more, but I think those are some of the ones that comes to mind.
Yeah, maybe every company needs to look at the kinds of workflows that are very core to what they do as a company, and where can they rely on outside services that do this kind of thing. So most companies have marketing and sales and service teams, but it's not the core for that company, so they can rely on agents from other companies. But each company should also decide, like if you're an insurance company, you probably really want to look at risk and classifying and identifying risk very, very well. And you should probably have some core expertise internally. And then for especially the things that are internal, but even for working with other partners, you want to ideally build virtuous data cycles, is what I call them, where just by doing the workflow manually, you're actually collecting clean training data for an AI to be able to take over. So let's say, in service, emails come in, just some random person in the Gmail account answers that email. Well, it's going to be hard for an AI to then take that and automate that workflow. But if you have a CRM, you have concretely, that email comes in, it gets assigned somewhere, and you store somewhere how that email got actually resolved, then you can use that data eventually and have agents take over those workflows.
Maybe one last thing, Nad, that hasn't been said is, for so many enterprises, the kind of work that agentic AI is going to be amazing at taking off people's plates and scaling, the workflows aren't written down. And so simply collecting that data, we see as a big bottleneck, because it's nobody's job today to do that. Somebody has to be told, put everything else aside and go work cross-functionally to understand, how do we triage an inbox? Which ERP out of the 11 does it go to? And, really create more of the SOPs that agentic AI can follow.
I feel like I've seen this before. I mean, enterprises talked about digital transformation for years, and suddenly it was all about the people and the people problems. So that's funny. But May, I was thinking of your org chart thing, and I hadn't thought of that. Suddenly we're talking about how this is going to impact the entire org strategy, the organizational charts. I mean, how is that going to work?
I'll give you an example from our business, because I think one thing that we probably have all in common is building and scaling a generative AI company. You are in constant 0 to 1 mode. Doesn't matter how big you get. And we can have somebody on our customer team literally build a working prototype of a feature that goes directly to engineering now, right? It is a real cross-functional change, even in our own organization, how much more productivity, how much more leverage we have given every single employee in the organization. But you have to be willing to have an org that can do that, and that can skip steps and skip org levels and not really care about the org chart. And that is not the enterprise. And we have seen a lot more success choosing greenfield opportunities that become the story that everybody can rally around, of what you can do when you build grounds up agentic first, AI first, because that, first of all, doesn't make anybody angry or upset. There are no politics. And it really demonstrates, how you have to really think cross-functionally and outcome-oriented. And if you were building your company today, how would you build it? It'd be very different than a lot of the multi-hundred-year organizations we're working with.
Yeah, I think all of us are going to become managers of AI. And most people right now are individual contributors. And it actually turns out it's a skill to manage. And you have to learn how to, in very disambiguated, contextually aware ways, train someone, know how to evaluate them, know when you can trust them, and just let it run. And I think we're going to all go through those same learning steps with AI agents.
This question is for everybody. I'm going from here to Las Vegas to Black Hat and to DEF CON, and I was really thinking about Dr. Song's security and safety issues. And there are so many agentic AI sessions at Black Hat this year. How is that going to be dealt with? I'm wondering if you could each speak on that, particularly for the enterprise customer.
Yeah, and especially with multi-agent systems. What's happened, and I'm going to give one example. Like we build many multi-agent systems at Google. Some of them have million calls to make some decisions. And each of those calls have some risk around security, privacy, ethics, safety, etc. And now all of a sudden, instead of just one call, you have so many that risk is exploding. So I think we need to really look at component by component and make sure that at every single component level, it's more or less as close to 100% as possible in all of these values. And of course, security and privacy is a big focus area for Google and I'm sure for all the companies.
Yeah, I will add to that. I think in enterprises, a lot of information is actually governed. It's private in nature. There are a few people, maybe in a specific department that can access some information, but not others. So when you think about like bringing AI and AI agents in the enterprise, that's the first thing that you have to actually think about. Like, is this agent, like, is it running on behalf of a human? And if so, it should only have access to the information that that particular human has access to inside the enterprise. And so you have to make sure that these governance restrictions are actually followed in the enterprise. That's one key challenge, and you have to sort of absolutely make sure that your agent frameworks are capable of handling that. But the interesting one that we actually realize often, like we hear from especially the largest of the companies, is that they'll come and tell us that, well, we don't trust our own governance. We have lots of sensitive information inside the company. We haven't set correct permissions on our own data. Like if AI made everything so easy to access, we're really scared of that world. We're scared of what people are going to find. And so when you think about AI systems, you have to actually go beyond the active governance mechanisms that you have in place, but actually make AI smart and understand the context of what an agent is supposed to do and what information, even if it had access to it, you should not be making use of. So those are some interesting challenges with security in agentic.
There are a lot of startups to be built in this world. Again, another story from our experience. When you connect Writer's Action Agent to our own Google Drive, right, what Arvind just described becomes a problem that we've got too. So what did we do before we gave everyone access to that? Well, made sure that there wasn't some Google sheet that had everyone's salary that was set to only people with this link can discover, which agentic AI is going to get really good at discovering very quickly. So exactly how do you productize that kind of security vulnerability discovery in preparation for true agentic rollouts? No one has really solved that at scale.
I think we're going to try the new microphone. Check. It's number 6. All right, thank you. So short term, I agree. There are a lot of security concerns because the cost of finding one vulnerability is fairly small, and it's just going to get smaller with agentic AI. Now, long term, as that cost gets so low, you can actually have every company run millions and millions of attacks against itself and then harden the system. And so as the cost gets so low that you can do that at scale for yourself, you can actually inoculate your systems much, much better. And then I'm actually long-term more optimistic again than a lot of other people.
All right, last lightning round. In a few words, what's one lesson about deploying real-world agents that you think academic folks should really understand? I've stumped them.
We're hiring, by the way, everywhere on all groups. May@writer.com. I think that the data is really messy. It's overlapping. The same data lives in multiple systems, and that's one problem. And the ability to delegate for a agent is a whole new paradigm that most folks are not prepared for.
Yeah, I guess I second this, but Richard at U.com for hiring. I believe that all the different infrastructure layers of agentic AI that we know are needed, it makes a lot of sense to work inside each of them a lot more. And so for us, it was kind of search over public and some private data too. But I think in terms of research, what a lot of folks are underestimating is the power of these models to program and to actually run coding loops in a much deeper way inside the model. So, SQL queries, for instance, are a great example. No one is really doing that at scale at very deep inference times of the model. You usually take these large language models, you ask them to write some code, you let that code run, you get some output, and then maybe you iterate. But I think there's a lot more deeper work you can do in coding.
From our side, I think one of the key challenges with agents, again, is their accuracy and like making sure that they don't take actions, especially mutative actions inside the enterprise that can wreak havoc. And so I think the answer for any agent company when they go and sell their products, including us, we'll always say that, hey, put a human in the loop, put guardrails, not let agents take actions, before humans confirm. But I think for academics, that's the area that we need the most help on, which is citations, verifiability, and how do you actually get past that, where you have a lot more confidence in letting agents take actions autonomously.
Similar answer, actually. Especially when you're building your agents, you need to be able to know when you're improving versus when you're not. So your data is super critical, your ground truth is super critical, and probably self-evaluation and your agents having the ability to be able to self-evaluate is super critical. Otherwise, you'll improve your algorithms and agents, and you will not know if it's really improving. So that's going to be a big bottleneck if you don't set it up right in the first place.
Well, thank you to all our panelists. We will be taking a break, and we'll be coming back at 3:40. Thank you so much.